So tonight we have a world-renowned performer. David Rovics. You know the guy. You've heard his stuff before, I'm sure. And David has consented to come in and warm up the evening for us with some of his tunes. Freshly back just a few weeks ago from Europe. David Rovics, folks.
Got to get on the right email list so I know about when folks like Cindy are coming to Portland. But at this time, it was somehow I accidentally found out. But somebody like on the East Coast told me about it, I think. I turned on my TV, though it was hard to see these men who would be head of state. What a great country from sea to shining sea. We watched the Republicans debate. Newt stood with his third wife and said, "You bet your life the president is a red. He wants to tax the rich a lot, take your limo and your yacht. He wants to have the banker's heads. And if he gets in again, he'll paint the White House pink and then he'll hire Chavez as his VP. And we'll be right on track to give capitalism the sack, along with the insurance industry. If only it were true, if only it were true, I'd be so happy, wouldn't you? If only it were true, if only it were true, if only it were true. He'll give everyone food stamps and wheelchair ramps. He'll subsidize windmills and maple syrup. He'll cripple industries with eco-friendly policies, and pretty soon we will be just like Europe. He'll shut down oil wells, give out solar cells to every home in Delaware and Illinois. He'll ban logging in the parks. He'll send the works of Karl Marx to the homes of every American girl and boy. He'll abolish pesticides. He'll be giving out free rides and free lunches too in his high-speed trains. He'll start lots of public works full of union perks. He'll fill all the cities up with bicycle lanes. If only it were true, if only it were true, I'd be so happy, wouldn't you? If only it were true, if only it were true, if only it were true. Watch out, his critics tell, this shall be our death knell. He'll pull the troops out and end all of our wars. He'll gut military spending, our empire will be ending, and soon we'll be invaded by the Moors. He'll legalize all drugs, give away beer mugs and hookahs to every child, and Korans. He'll ban religion from the schools, give 40 acres and a mule to every person who makes less than 50 grand. He'll close Guantanamo to torture, he'll say no. He'll make us all drive electric cars. He'll reinstate the fairness doctrine, take off that damn flag pin, and he'll put Rupert Murdoch behind bars. If only it were true, if only it were true, I'd be so happy, wouldn't you? If only it were true, if only it were true, if only it were true. My friend Bob Steck, when he was a young man in the 1930s, he was one of several thousand Americans and tens of thousands from around the world who went to Spain to defend Spanish democracy against the uprising of the fascists among the ranks of the leadership of the military, and who were aided by the U.S. in the form of fuel sales, which was very significant at the time since it allowed them to run their tanks. And when Bob came home in 1939, along with the rest of the survivors of the international battalions, which was about half of them from the U.S. who lived, and he came back, and everybody, as I'm sure pretty much everybody, you do have the usual suspects kind of look to you, and I think you're all already aware of this, but they came back and were immediately given the official federal designation of premature anti-fascists, which is anybody who was against fascism before 1941. You were officially premature anti-fascist and could not get high security clearance, which was significant for them because about, I don't know, more than half of them volunteered to join the U.S. military a couple years later. They were old when I was young. Now they've all but passed away. Now it's just a second-hand memory of the day when from all around the world they sailed off to Spain to fight against the fascists, where so many men were slain. Who will recall the days when they all stood side by side, now that the last Lincoln veteran died? Beside Martin Luther King, or in a veterans parade, you could see the men who made the journey to join the 15th Brigade. When men of many nations, of most every creed and hue, Catholics and Protestants, atheists and Jews, joined together in the trenches to turn back the fascist tide, now that the last Lincoln veteran died. The working class of many nations joined in a desperate bid with what weapons they could find. They fought to save Madrid from Brussels and Berlin, Galway and London town. Who will recall the brigadistas who went to take the fascists down? There beside the Spanish people, even the figs and olives cried, now that the last Lincoln veteran died. The Republic had the people, but the fascists had the tanks. But Il Duce and Der Fuhrer deserve only some of Franco's thanks, 'cause the fuel to move the armor came from the USA, and the men that they gunned down were from New York and Frisco Bay. Uncle Sam claimed he was neutral. Who will remember how he lied, now that the last Lincoln veteran died? They say people get conservative the older that they age. They say that being radical is just a youthful phase, but the finest communist I've known lived to 95, and he spent his whole life striving for humanity to thrive. To forget these fallen heroes is something I cannot abide, now that the last Lincoln veteran died. Now that the last Lincoln veteran died. There's a valley in Spain called Jarama. It's a place that we all know so well. It was there that we gave of our manhood, where so many of our brave comrades fell. song I co-wrote with George Bush. We can sing it with me. And, they all have choruses. This one's a simple one. The war in Iraq, while illegal and undeclared, actually has a name, and it's been consistent since I think sometime March 2003. The name is Operation Iraqi Freedom, which of course in English the acronym for which is OIF, but it had a different name for several hours, and I did not make this up. Somebody in the Bush administration did, and presumably paid for their mistake, their acronomic error, but this is in fact true. We've got a situation and it calls for a solution that upholds our domination of the planet. We're gonna make our case and we're gonna make it well, and if you don't like our logic, you can it. We'll use impeccable intelligence from any country in the world, as long as we all see eye to eye. And if we don't find quite what we need, we know what to do. Just look into the camera and lie. It's Operation Iraqi Liberation. Tell me, what does that spell? Operation Iraqi Liberation. O-I-L. We'll lie about the missiles and the nuclear research. We'll lie about uranium. We'll build military bases and smile for reporters as we give away bubble gum. We'll lie about Bin Laden, his connections with the Saudis. We'll lie about 911. We'll lie about the Baptists, their connections to Al-Qaeda, because we know there's none. It's Operation Iraqi Liberation. Tell me, what does that spell? Operation Iraqi Liberation. O-I-L. We'll lie about the missiles and the we'll lie about the North Koreans, and we'll lie about Iran, and don't mention Israel. Keep those nuclear weapons out of this song, and we'll all get together swell. And we'll liberate these people, we'll liberate their money, we'll liberate their soil. We'll liberate their airports, we'll liberate their harbors, and we'll liberate their oil. It's Operation Iraqi Liberation. Tell me, what does that spell? Operation Iraqi Liberation. O-I-L. Operation Iraqi Liberation. Tell me, what does that spell? Operation Iraqi Liberation. O-I-L. Well, I think for many of us last fall who were in some position to be traveling around, it was especially good time to be traveling around because you could always do 2 gigs in one day. I don't know if Cindy was doing the same thing, if you did be speaking around last fall, but like everywhere you went, there was always an Occupy camp to visit. So it was like always a double feature. It was getting a lot of media attention, which was quite interesting. And but the articles, it was always like one article on the paper would be, these Occupy people don't know what they're doing, they're all very confused. And then the next article would be about the division of wealth in the US, And it's like, if the two journalists could have been reading each other's articles, they could have just, cleared up the whole thing. Because this is where they buy the politicians. Because this is where power has its seat. Because 99% of us are suffering at the mercy of the madmen on the street. Because all of us are victims of class warfare. being waged on us by the 1%. Because these greedy banksters rob the country, leaving us without the means to pay the rent. Because the last time that we had a decent government was about 1932. Because we the people are supposed to run this country, but instead it's all run by and for the few. Because now we know the rich do not pay taxes, but when we need a hand, it's us who bail them out. Because we suspected we lived in a plutocracy, but suddenly of late there is no doubt. So we're gonna stay right here. We're gonna stay right here. Because both my parents lost their savings. Because I have never opened an account. Because the interest on my credit card just doubled, and now I can't pay the minimum amount. Because these budget cuts are just immoral, with our schools as overcrowded as they are. Because there are no buses where I live, but I can't afford to drive a car. Because so many of us don't have health insurance. Because the rest of us have it, but it sucks. Because the rich are flying in their private jets, while the rest of us are slogging through the muck. Because capitalism isn't working. This system has just failed to produce. Because the 1% are prospering, while the rest of us just suffer their abuse. So we're gonna stay right here. We're gonna stay right here. Because it has been demonstrated amply that the winners are the ones who stick around. Because this world should belong to everyone, not just the banksters who smash it to the ground. Because we've noticed voting doesn't change things when the politicians are mostly millionaires. Because we're learning how to stand up like Tunisians, like they did in Tahrir Square, where a young man named Mohammed Bouazizi struck a match that lit up all the earth. And all around the world the spell was broken, and a movement for the future was in birth. Because there's only so much shit the rich can feed us before we figure out which side we're on. Because we've learned if we want our liberation, it will only come if we stay here till the rising of the dawn. So we're gonna stay right here. We're gonna stay right here. Because corporations are not people, and we can't just let them choose. Because if we leave our feet to them, then all of us will surely lose. Because the climate clock is ticking, and we can't just leave our world behind. Because corporate rule isn't working, and it's time for humans' hearts and minds. Because you can't take it with you. Because the rich just do not care. Because it doesn't matter how much you make, but how much you can share. Because these moments don't come often. Because we want truly to be free. Because we know what really matters. Something called society. So we're gonna stay right here. We're gonna stay